Right, this should be working now. Let me just do a quick test to see if it's working, and then we'll start the review. Okay, cool, it's working. And right, let's start this. Before we did Druid, and it took so freaking long that we could only do Druid. So next time we're on Fighter. Oh no, we did Cleric last time, so now we're on Druid. That's right. Luckily, as you can see, Druid has significantly less subclasses, official subclasses. So this should be easier. Quick TLDR on my opinion on Druid. It's one of my favourite classes. It's up there with Cleric. I'm a big fan of it being obviously a full spellcaster, but also having an interesting ability that is, although it's only one ability, like you'd expect from like Rage, and it can be a bit all-consuming in subclasses. It itself has so much utility to it that you will find that, at least I find, that it doesn't feel that bad. Plus you have spells which sort of supplement that, because they're their own ability on them in themselves. So let's just start it off, and we're starting off with the newest one. Actually, the newest one is Circle of the Blighted. It was bought with the Matt Mercer book. I'm gonna keep calling it that because, frankly, that's how I know it. I've had a bit of a look on this one. It's quite interesting. The concept behind it is a bit more of like a corrupted druid. So twisting kind of nature more to your will, and also using stuff like, you know, decay, sort of very much inhabiting like the nature part of like a hag and stuff. You know how they'll normally have like evil trees that are like misshapen into like the faces of like a scary person and stuff. So second level ability. Starting at second level, when you choose this circle, you can use your bonus action to corrupt a patch of land or an area of water in a 10-foot radius centered on a point within 60 feet of you. The corruption lasts for 1 minute. The corruption area is difficult terrain for creatures that are hostile to you. Additionally, when a creature in the area takes damage from an attack or spell for the first time on our turn, that's actually important. It takes an extra 1d4 necrotic damage. You can move this patch up to 30 feet as a bonus action. Flying creatures are unaffected, and you can only use it once per short rest or long rest, depending on which one you do first. Now, this ability is very, very interesting. I was having a conversation with a couple of my friends, I think a couple of weeks ago, about this ability, and I very much like this ability. I look at it and I go, it does what you expect from sort of the first ability you get, which is a lot of subclasses, their first ability, it'll include just a slight damage buff, where it'll be like, oh, do an extra d6 damage, psychic damage or something, or another d6 fire damage. You know, they'll have something like that, especially in martial classes. And this one does that in the sense that it gives you this, not a huge amount in a d4, but it's, you know, it's not insignificant. Not only does it do that, it keeps them at bay because they also are on difficult terrain. It's also, personally, I very much like the spell Spiritual Weapon, and it's very reminiscent of Spiritual Weapon in the sense that it's this constant damage that is done on the enemy. This one you have to go through a couple hoops because you've got to hit them first, and it's got to do damage. But it's this constant damage that you keep concentration on because this is a feature more than it is like a concentration spell. And weirdly, Spiritual Weapon is also just not concentration, which is always the weirdest. I I also think it's got a pretty decent flavor to it, because you're trying to like you're trying to sort of take physical control over nature, and that's exactly what you're doing here. You're corrupting it to your will. Generally, I think it's very useful both in keeping the enemy away, keeping them in combat with the people you want them to be in combat with, and to do that extra damage. Big fan of this. The second ability it gets, both at second level, your physical form begins to show effects of the corruption you wield, tracing blackened veins across your skin, producing gnarled bony protrusions, or other eerie phenomena. You gain proficiency in the charisma intimidation skill, which is very useful. I've always found it a bit weird that intimidation hasn't been a strength skill. I know you technically could do it as a strength skill, but I just find it a bit weird. This giving you a sort of proficiency in it makes complete sense, because you are becoming more scary looking. Additionally, while you're transformed by the wild shape feature, you gain +2 AC, as there's gnarled bone spikes coming up from your body, and your beast forms also gain dark vision with a radius of 60 foot, or an additional 60 foot if they already have it. This is very cool, because this sort of subclass isn't really based in using your wild shape a ton, but having things like this just as little added extras just means that it's getting a load more use, even if it's not going to be your main feature. And it just narratively, the whole blighted shape ability it's so flavorful, because it's literally showing that this dark magic that you're doing, it's having a proper effect on your body, and you're seeing it visually, but also giving you an ability from that, which is really, really cool. Call of the Shadow Seed. At 6th level, you learn to summon the feral children of the forest from the life force of your enemies. When a creature that is not undead or a construct takes damage within the area of your defile ground feature, you can use your reaction to summon a blighted sapling in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the creature. You can direct the sapling to make an attack against any creature within 5 feet of it as part of this reaction. The sapling then acts on your initiative, obeying verbal commands. The blighted sapling remains in your service until it reduces to 0, or until the end of your next long rest, or until you summon another sapling. At which point, it crumbles into a foul-smelling mulch. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, while regaining all expended uses when you finish a long rest. And a sapling is this. So it's not particularly powerful. It's going to have a decent amount of... Not that much, actually, now that I think about it. Twice your druid level. Max it'll get to 40. That's not horrendous for something that you're using as a reaction. Nothing here is particularly good when you look at its abilities. It's got at this point in time, it has this claw attack, 2d4 plus proficiency. That's not bad. I think I'll go over these abilities more when they come up, but these abilities are important. But just basing on the ability that's there now, it's really nice. It's another thing that is like, you hit the enemy, you do damage to them, then you put them in combat with the sapling, that then also maybe does a bit more damage. But more importantly, it means that they can't leave without taking another attack. And people are quite hesitant to disengage or take the hits a lot of the time. So you have this another sort of incentive for them to stay in. Plus, if you have the defile ground, which you would have to have for this feature to work on the ground, not only have you damaged them and they've taken an extra d4, But now, if they try and leave, even if they just take that attack of opportunity or use their turn to disengage, then it's still difficult terrain, and you could still then move the difficult terrain and then make this thing attack. So it's just like another roadblock or another inconvenience, which I quite like. Also, another thing, I've probably said this with the last Matt Mercer book subclass that was added. He's so good at in the abilities putting loads of narrative stuff. Like just this line of it turns into a foul-smelling mulch. Such a good little extra thing that adds, just some like flavor to the ability. Level 10, you get an increase in your defile ground. It now does a 20-foot radius, which is insane. Additionally, the extra damage has gone up to a d6, so you're keeping the scaling going. That's not too weird of an ability. The size is kind of insane. Foul conjurations. Starting at 10th level, the creatures you conjure are malformed and bloated with toxins. Any beast, fey, or plant summoned or created by your spells or class feature gain the following traits. They have immunity to necrotic and poison damage in a poison condition. Necrotic might come up. That's quite useful. When the creature is reduced to 0 hit points, it explodes into a burst of toxic mulch and fetid viscera. Each creature within 5 feet of the exploding creature must succeed on a Constitution saving throw against your spell save DC or take necrotic damage based on the creature's challenge rating. As an action, you can also cause a summon to explode, immediately killing it. Now, what's interesting about this is I'm looking at this ability, and I think the saving throw, it says you must succeed on a con save against your spell save or take. So they don't take half if you fail, if they succeed on their saving throw, which is a bit of a shame. But overall, I love this ability because now the narrative's even going to your summons, and having them explode is so cool because it's like it shows that you have no actual care to your summons, which makes so much narrative sense when you look at how the class works. Another interesting feature that I've seen here is that they get blind sense, which is very good for like a nothing summon. Like that's really decent. That means that you've got like that'll come up a lot, and the damage vulnerability most of the time won't come up because you'll probably die from one hit. But now they die of one hit and they just blow up, which is another one of those things where it's like, well, now I don't know if I want to disengage or take the attack of opportunity. But before it was just like, well, I'll just kill it with one of my attacks, and now it's like, well, maybe I don't even want to kill it with one of my attacks because it'll blow up and do more damage to me. Yeah, narratively I love the ability. Practically I love that ability. 14th level, the damage goes up to a d8. Again, just scaling, normal stuff. Incarnation of Corruption. This is the capstone ability. Well, technically the other one was also, but I feel like this one more so is. The physical form began to take on the tainted traits of the land you are bonded to. Your skin grows ashen, and your eyes darken or turn completely white. Spines and jagged spurs emerge from your body, granting you resistance to necrotic damage and +2 AC. Additionally, when you start your turn within the radius of the corruption created by your feature, you can use a bonus action to gain temp hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. So what's really interesting here is this final ability of the class gives you this sort of option now, a choice for yourself, where it's like, do I go for the idea of I put it on the enemy, and the enemy is now getting hit by all this stuff, or do I put it on myself and get this bonus temp HP that can deal with, like, getting attacked by ranged creatures? And at least sort of, like, stop the bleed, for lack of a better word. Also, notably, that isn't mentioned anywhere here. I only noticed this now. Also, gives your blighted sapling multi-attack, which is kind of huge. But overall, yeah, both of these abilities really, really fun. I think the only complaint I have about this subclass is that it feels like you don't get any interesting utility abilities. Except for maybe, I guess, the intimidation thing, but it's a bit niche. But that's me grasping at straws at the moment. Blighted is a really, really good druid subclass that I honestly wish I hope I can play at some point. Dreams. Now, I remember Dreams. Dreams is one of the earlier ones. Yeah, it's Xanathar's. It's not the earliest one, but I remember this. It's the Fey-related one, if I remember correctly. Yeah, good aligned Fey. I'll be honest, this one never interested me, but let me have a look. Maybe its abilities will change my mind. At second level, you can imbue the you become imbued with the blessing of the Summer Court. You are a font of energy that offers respite from the injuries. You have a pool of Fey energy represented by a number of d6s equal to your druid level. As a bonus action, you can choose one creature you can see within 120 feet of you and spend a number of die equal to half your druid level or less. Okay. Roll the spent dice and add them together. They regain those hit points equal to the total. Target also regains one temporary hit point per die spent. You regain them on a long rest. So effectively, you get another set of hit die, but you can do them as a bonus action, and they also give them a little extra. That's quite interesting. Having access to all this extra healing, making you even more of a healer than you would normally be. Because it's quite interesting, because thinking back on it, I guess there really isn't. I think of, like, when I think of healers, I think of Bard, I think of Druid, and I think of Cleric as, like, proper dedicated healers. And Cleric does have subclasses where you are focused around healing, at least partly. Maybe also with a side focus on you taking the damage. When I'm thinking of Life Cleric at the moment. And so does Bard. And this one, I guess, is the healing specialist for the Druid. That's quite interesting. I quite like that ability. Just giving you a load more healing. Because that can be significant. Obviously, your hit die isn't the best hit die, but that's still significant. Later levels, you can be doing, like, 5d6, 4d6. That's still, that can be enough to take an attack. Right, 6th level ability. At 6th level, home can be wherever you are. During a short rest or a long rest, you can invoke a shadowy power of the glooming court to help guard your respite. At the start of the rest, you touch a point in space, and an invisible 30-foot radius sphere of magic appears, centered on that point. Total cover blocks the sphere. While within the sphere, you and your allies get +5 on stealth checks and wisdom perception checks, and any light from an open flame in the sphere is invisible outside. The sphere vanishes at the end of the rest or when you leave the sphere. I'm not sure about this line here. The total cover blocks the sphere. It doesn't sound like you get total cover. So I don't really understand that. So ignoring that bit, I like this a lot because you're the dreams druid, right? So what do you focus on? Okay, well we focus on healing, which makes some sort of sense because you're based in the summer court, and it makes sense for them to have that kind of ability. And then you go, okay, well now that's done, and we've given them the unique ability they're going to be using loads. Let's focus on really what the dream is going to be about, which is stuff when people are sleeping. So when people are having a respite. Now my group can have this sort of. It kind of reminds me of that dome spell, the something tiny hut spell that the like wizards and sorcerers and stuff can get. But this one is just an ability that happens at the start of your rest every time. You don't have to spend anything for this, and it's just like hey, it's going to be really hard for people to sneak up on you, and it'll be really hard for them to even find you. I think that's a great ability. Maybe a bit weak, honestly. If anything, I'd like it if it were like camouflaged you completely. But I mean, you can do a lot of things when you know that lights won't show up, and you know you've got those bonuses. Hidden paths. Starting at 10th level, you can use the hidden magical pathways that some Fae use to traverse space in a blink of an eye. As a bonus action, on your turn, you can teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Alternatively, you can use your action to teleport one willing creature you touch up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you see. You can use this feature equal to the number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and you regain them on a long rest. So what's interesting is if I read this, so now you've got a situation where not only can you heal them from long distances, they get too close to you, you can teleport away. Plus you have that little extra utility of going, we need to get our fighter or paladin into the combat, or barbarian. But the problem is, to get to where he wants to go, he's going to have to go through at least 2 attacks of opportunity. And we don't want to be wasting his turn using action disengage, and he probably doesn't want to be taking the damage. And so what you do is you go, okay, now what I'll do is I'll just use my ability, teleport him 30 feet over there, and maybe it doesn't get him into the combat, but maybe it gets him round all the attacks of opportunity. Because I could see that. I quite like that ability. I'm a big fan of abilities that are just like, I can teleport other people. Finally, capstone ability, Walker in Dreams. At 14th level, the magic of the Feywild grants you the ability to travel mentally or physically through the Dreamlands. When you finish your short rest, you can cast one of the following spells without expending a spell slot or requiring material components. Dream, with you as the messenger, Scrying, or Teleportation Circle. This use of Teleportation Circle is special. Rather than opening a portal to a permanent teleportation circle, it opens a portal to the last location where you finished a long rest on your current plane of existence. If you haven't taken a long rest on your current plane, the spell fails but isn't wasted. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. This is a really cool ability, because now you have not only does it gel with the idea of Circle of Dreams because it's related to resting, but it also gels with it with the teleportation circle related to where you last rested. Also, having access to like this scrying spell, I'll be honest, a lot of the times when I see these spells, I'm like, I don't feel like there's going to be a situation where I want to use a 5th level spell on something that I just feel like not only would I need to get one of these 1,000 gold piece material things, but I don't know if realistically this is going to give me enough information. So it always feels a bit weird to use that kind of ability. Dream, I could see being used very well in like a role playing aspect. Again, not really one I've used in my games. But teleportation circle and the fact that it can bring you back to the last place you rested, which probably is a safe haven in some capacity. Most of the time that'll be like a city or like an inn, in like a village or something. You can definitely use that. Assuming I'm right about the teleportation circle, give me a second to read it. The portal. Okay, yeah. So you can use this as sort of like a get out of jail. It's like, okay, we're being surrounded. We have like a couple hours before they completely surround us, and we have nowhere to go. That's okay. Short rest. We all teleport out now. Overall, I think Solo Dreams, I think one of its biggest problems, and overall I like the narrative behind almost all of the abilities. And I like what the abilities do. I think the problem it has is it very much is it's not really using. It's got access to the spells like everyone else does, but I don't feel like it gives you enough to use sort of like without it being in a very specific situation. Like this bomb thing, you're using this almost every time. This ability, it's fine. It's like it's it's fine. It's not like great, but it's not bad. This great ability. I feel like the capstone ability, as much as it's cool, I don't feel like you're getting much use out of it. And this I could be wrong. It also doesn't help that me particularly our group doesn't do a lot of short rests. So that might be influencing it. Honestly, thinking about it now and going over it, and my only complaint being that it's decent. It's very good. I think I was being overly critical like a couple seconds ago. I think it's pretty decent. I think it's good. It's very good. I think I think I was a bit too combat focused there. And it might have been because I just seen the blighted one, but I didn't think of how useful that is out of combat, and I think it is actually quite useful. It gets 10 out of 10 for flavor as well. Land. Now everyone who knows druid knows land, because land is the generic druid. This is the spell druid. Um, Second level, you get a bonus druid cantrip of your choice. Nice little extra thing. Um, I always feel like I have all the cantrips I need a lot of the time, but I guess having something utility like mending or I guess like thaumaturge or druidcraft, having that little extra thing might come up occasionally and it might be decent. Also, you get starting at second level, you regain some of your magical energy by sitting in meditation and communing with nature. During a short rest, you can choose expanded spell slots to recover. The spell slots can have a combined level that is equal to or less than half your druid level rounded up, and none of the spells can be 6th level or higher. You can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. It's nice you're a spellcasting druid, getting access to more spellcasting is always handy. It'll come up. It reminds me of what the sorcerer gets, where they can use their sorcery points to get back spell slots. And it's not a great conversion rate, but you know that like you'll use this occasionally because you'll be right next to the boss. You've used a lot of your resources, and you're like, I think it would be better that instead of having this meta magic, I instead had a couple of 3rd level spells, or a 2nd level spell and a 3rd level spell. Also, you get these abilities. So, dependent on what land you choose, you get access to these spells at certain levels. I'm not going to go through all of them, because it's just a load of sets of spells like from the base game. They're all decent. I quite like this narratively because it means you can flavor your spell list around what environment you would be from. I think the only problem with it, it's not necessarily a problem with the subclass itself, is that it suffers from being one of the first subclasses because you don't have access to a lot of spells that I feel like would fit more for some of these lands, but just didn't exist at that point. Overall, all of those abilities are pretty decent. This is the proper spell casting druid. It gets nothing related, as you can see at this point. It gets nothing related to its wild shape. It gets nothing related to I think mainly just the wild shape thing is the biggest thing. It gets nothing related to that, which is one of those obvious features where you know, okay, this is more spellcasting based. It's the same for the Dreams one actually, and it's a shame really because we haven't actually seen it yet because the Blighted also doesn't really give you stuff related to your wild shape. But in recent subclasses, except for the Matt Mercer one, they've been giving you alternatives to like what your wild shape does related to your subclass, and I've really been a fan of it. I really have because it changes up how you use the druid significantly, and you can do that wild shape if you want, but it isn't necessarily always isn't always like it isn't. You don't always have to do it. You can use something that makes a bit more sense narratively for your character to do. At 6th level, moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can pass through non-magical plants without being slowed by them, or without taking damage from them if they have thorns, spines, or similar hazards. In addition, you have advantage on saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement, such as those created by the Entangled spell. I quite like this because I've seen, weirdly, for an older subclass, this does something that I don't see often in some of the newer subclasses, which is that it does the whole you are not impeded by difficult terrain, specifically non-magical difficult terrain, but it has an extra effect where it's like, okay, but if it's plants, even if they're magically difficult terrain, you still have an advantage on them. You don't see that a lot actually. When you look at stuff, it normally will just say that first paragraph, which just like non-magical stuff, difficult terrain you can get through. Nature's Ward. It is a bit of a lackluster 6th level ability, by the way. I would want a more impactful 6th level ability. That's just me. 10th level, you can't be charmed or frightened by elementals or fey, and you're immune to poison and disease. That's just a bad ability. That's been outscaled. You can get this kind of ability and it won't say elemental or fey, and you might even be able to get this ability earlier. The fact that all paladins would get this ability earlier is a kind of a big problem with this ability. I feel like because it's so spellcasting based, they've just sort of disregarded the abilities past the one that gives you more spells. Because I feel like this 10th level ability is going to feel so underwhelming compared to everybody else's 10th level ability. And I'm talking even like other subclasses that were made at this time. When you reach 14th level, creatures of the natural world sense your connection to nature and become hesitant to attack you. When a beast or plant attacks you, the creature must make a wisdom saving throw against your druid spell save DC. On a failed, that creature must choose a different target, or the attack automatically misses. On a successful save, they're immune to the effect for 24 hours. The creature is aware of this effect before it makes its attack against you. This ability is really cool. I've seen a similar effect, I think, with the Sanctuary spell, I think. It's something like that. It's a cleric spell that does something very similar. I think the major problem with this, and if you've been watching the other reviews, you'd know what I'm going to say. It's the biggest problem is the fact that that says when a beast or plant, because to me, that's not coming up at 14th level. I was talking about this with my friend the other day, and I was talking about the previous review where I mentioned it for the life channel divinity on the cleric, and my sort of logic was, you're not gonna ever get beasts that are at that level, not with the definition of beasts that they go with at the moment. You might get an occasional plant if they try and homebrew stuff, because there are powerful dryads and stuff. I won't repeat it because it's exactly the same as what I said for life. It's not going to stop me from repeating many other things that I'm sure if you watch all of them you'd see. But this effect, TLDR, I think comes up almost never, and I think land probably to me is my least favorite, especially of the ones we've seen. Mainly because other than its second level abilities, I think all of them are bad. They're all really situational and will borderline never come up. And or they're like the 10th level ability that you just get better versions of. Moon. Moon is, if land is the generic one, Moon is the one that people remember. So Moon is, I think, kind of the basis of what they did later on by making wild shapes unique. But this one just buffs a wild shape instead of giving you a different thing you can do with it. So first of the abilities, and the most important, you gain the ability to use wild shape on your turn as a bonus action rather than an action. Additionally, when you're transformed by wild shape, you can use your bonus action to expend one spell slot to gain 1d8 hit points per level of the spell slot expended. I think a lot of the time you're only using that second half of the ability if you're deciding to go full like wild shape forms. Like you're not really caring about the spellcasting part at all, because that's not a good like rate, honestly. Circle forms. Starting at second level, you can use your wild shape to transform into a beast with challenge rating as high as 1. Starting at 6th level, you can transform into a beast with a challenge rating as high as your level divided by 3 rounded down. So as you can see, it's just got a much higher CR rate than anyone else, and it goes much higher. Not only do you get stuff quicker, but it goes much higher. This is the point of the moon, the circle of the moon. Now, I'm sorry about the flashes on the screen. I've got no idea why it does that, but I can't really stop that at the moment. But yeah, this is how you play Moon. Is you go into your combat forms that are much better than normal, and then you have stuff like, the most notable is the bear line: brown bear, black bear, polar bear. All of them are just like, you get a load of health. Your AC ain't that high, but you get a load of health and decent claw attacks. I like these abilities. It's a bit overpowered, but I prefer it over what I feel like. I prefer it over being underpowered. I prefer to go overpowered than underpowered, because I personally can make it less powerful by narratively doing stuff. At 6th level, you get magical attacks effectively. That's what it effectively says. For 90% of the time, you needed this because no beast has magic attacks. And I know someone in the comments of the YouTube video or this are going to be like, well, actually, blah blah blah, is like a magically attacking beast. Well, most of them, 99% don't. And so you need that, because at this point, a lot of stuff will have the whole non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing resistance. or immunity in some cases. At 10th level, they sort of like they one up themselves because they realize very early on that there is a limit to what beasts they can do. Realistically, they came up with this ability a lot earlier than I think they needed to, but I guess the logic is that druids inherently also are related to the natural world. And so at 10th level, you can expend 2 uses of your wild shape at the same time to transform into one of the 4 base elementals. These things are really powerful, much more powerful than your other wild shapes, and they give you decent utility. The fire elemental, for example, it can move. All of them really have this, except for I guess the earth elemental, but they can move through like an inch of inch wide without squeezing because they can manipulate their form. Also, it has fire form. Sorry, where it's like they just take damage if they're if it's the first time they enter within 5 feet of you. So they just have this nice little passive ability. Earth elementals have burrow speed. Air elementals can fly, which is huge, and they have this whirlwind ability. Water elementals, they have like all of the abilities that previously mentioned, but also just the fact that they have loads of condition immunities and resistances and stuff. It's such a good ability. And then finally, 14th level, you get 1,000 forms, which you can cast Alter Self at will. This will come up. I don't think you'll be like incredibly thrilled by what you get from it. Realistically, I feel like the elemental one feels more like a end ability than the Alter Self, but there's some useful things you can do with this. Give yourself a swimming speed, without using a wild shape. Changing your appearance can be very useful in like subterfuge. But notably, this isn't a spell. Well, no, it is a spell. Never mind. Never mind. Ignore that. I'm being an idiot. It's useful. It gives you like you can change into anything, especially with the fact it's at will. You can use that loads, and natural weapons. That probably never comes up because when you're planning on fighting, you're probably going to have a wild shape ready. But if it means if you don't, you can technically go into combat. But I don't know why you would. Overall, Moon really fun, really fun. And you'd think, oh well, there's no utility abilities there, Jack. Well, one, the 14th level ability is utility, and two, every wild shape ability. Not only does it give you more like not only does it give you more like power in combat, the higher CR stuff means you get access to weirder creatures that you can use as utility. I love it. Moon Druid's definitely up there. It's one of the rare early subclasses that still holds up, and in fact is considered overpowered by some people. Some people like to put nerfs on it. Druid of the Shepherd. Oh, by the way, I won't be doing this one as long as my normal streams because I've got something going on. I probably will just get through Druid. I might go a bit into the next class if I have time, but I won't be getting through all of it. Circle of the Shepherd. At 2nd level, you learn to speak, read and write Sylvan. In addition, beasts can understand your speech and you gain the ability to decipher their noises and motions. Most beasts lack intelligence to convey and understand sophisticated concepts, but a friendly beast could relay what it's seen or heard in the recent past. The ability doesn't grant you friendship with beasts, though. No, you can combine the ability with gifts to curry favour with them as you would any non-player character. Very useful ability. Getting so much use out of combat because although beasts aren't high level combatants, be hard pressed to find places, except for maybe other planes, but on the normal plane, where there aren't beasts of some kind there that you can talk to. And with I like how they put the writing there, because I can see situations where a DM would be like, yeah, you can talk with it, but it won't, it can't convey to you anything big. But this is like, no, it can relate to you what it saw, and it can relate to you what it heard. Now, I would argue that if you were in a situation where you overheard someone speaking in another language, I don't think the average person could relate to another person what they said in that other language. So that one's a bit iffy, but they're telling them what they saw. That's great. Also at second level, you can call forth nature spirits to influence the world around you. As a bonus action, you can magically summon an incorporeal spirit to a point you can see within 60 feet. The spirit creature has an aura of 30 foot. An aura in a 30-foot radius around that point. It counts as neither a creature nor an object, though it appears as a spectral appearance of the creature it represents. As a bonus action, you can move the spirit up to 60 feet to a point you can see. The spirit persists for 1 minute, or until you're incapacitated. Once you use this feature, you can't get it back until you finish a short or long rest. The effect of the spirit's aura depends on the type of spirit you summon. There is the bear spirit, where you and your allies gain its might and endurance. Each creature of your choice in an aura, when the spirit appears, gains temp hit points equal to 5, plus your druid level. In addition, you and your allies gain advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws while in the area. Hawk spirit. The hawk spirit is a consummate hunter, aiding you and your allies with its keen sight. When a creature makes an attack roll against a target in the spirit's aura, you can use your reaction to grant advantage to the attack roll. In addition, you and your allies have advantage on wisdom perception checks while in the aura. The unicorn spirit. You and your allies gain advantage on all ability checks made to detect creatures in the spirit's aura. In addition, if you cast a spell using a spell slot that restores hit points to any creature inside or outside the aura, each creature of your choice in the aura also regains hit points equal to your druid level. Now, I've played the druid of a Circle of the Shepherd before in one of my games, and what I will say is it's an absolute powerhouse early on. It's not as obvious unless you read the description of what Circle of the Shepherd is, based on those abilities, what it's about. But what it's about is summoning. You can see later on there is an ability called Mighty Summoner. And you don't understand how scary a battle can be early on when one of the players just decides to summon 8 giant owls directly around the enemies you summoned. There was a situation where I did exactly that, and then I proceeded to destroy a troll, completely rip it apart in one turn. It's insanely powerful. And just at this point, you've got access to summons, and you can then immediately plop down the bear spirit and get most of your summons, or maybe all of your summons, and a couple of your friends maybe, and just give them this little extra, extra 7 health, which is huge at second level. It doesn't scale particularly well until you realise how much it does collectively as an aura. If you can get, realistically, say you've got 3 companions, and you've got maybe you get 3 companions and then you get like 2 summons in. You are technically giving in total 35 temp hit points spread over 5 people, but that's huge for second level. You wouldn't get that. You wouldn't get a heal like that in second level. The reason I'm mentioning Bear Spirit so much is because I'll be honest, I don't feel like I used Hawk Spirit or Unicorn Spirit at all in my games. Now that could just be me because I'm very much a person that if I find something that works, it's going to be very hard to get me to do something else because I'm stuck in my way at that point. It seems like Hawk Spirit is more used to put on an enemy or where you think an enemy is, and then proceed to shoot them getting the occasional advantage, but assuming that this person's going to be quite sneaky, so you always want to be able to try and perceive them. And the Unicorn Spirit, I could honestly see me using more than the Hawk Spirit because I can see how it would be used. It's arguably better at finding certain kinds of creatures because you get advantage on ability checks to detect creatures in the spirit aura. So I imagine that means that if there was somebody invisible, you would have advantage on trying to find where they are. Because technically you can be invisible, but not hidden. Also, the ability to adjust if you heal. Each creature of your choice in the aura or can also regain hit points equal to your druid level. Just having this a little additional, I can heal 2 people. Like one person's obviously very hurt, and so you put the main heal on them, and then you just also happen to have that aura near one of your people that needs to be topped up. You just top them up with like 7 extra health. Oh, at this point it'd be 2 extra health, but still, it's like a little thing that it'll scale, and to the point where like this, but it's still pretty significant even at 20th level. So Bear and Unicorn Spirit I quite like. I feel like Hawk Spirit is a bit. I don't really understand what it's supposed to be used for. Mighty Spirit. Starting at 6th level, beasts and fae that you conjure are more resilient than normal. Any beast or fae summoned or created by a spell that you cast gain the following benefits. The creatures appear with more hit points than normal, 2 extra hit points per hit die. That's a little bit extra. It's not going to be a huge amount. Like even if they had 10 hit die, which I think is the level of like adult dragons and stuff at that point, it would only be an extra 20. But the fact that they have the second ability, which is their natural weapons are considered magical, means you also you sort of supplement a problem that would come up a lot if you were summoning a lot of beasts. I think a lot of fae do get access to some way of doing magical stuff, but with beasts it's a bit more of a problem. And so now what you're doing is you're summoning like 8 giant owls. All of them have an extra 4 health. All of them have magical attacks. Then you dump the spirit of the bear on them, giving them an extra. At this point, it would be what? It would be 11, an extra 11 hit points, which is like adding a third onto their health, which is huge. And then you just send them in against the enemy and just watch as they do. I mean, from my perspective, they did like all the health of one troll, and then was moving their way onto another troll to the point it surrendered at that point. It's a very useful ability, and it's needed for the shepherd to continue to work as a class. Beginning at 10th level, your spirit totem safeguards the beast and fae you call forth with your magic. When a beast or fae that you summoned or created with a spell ends its turn in your spirit totem aura, they regain hit points equal to half your druid level. So again, it's just another feature where it allows you to keep these beasts that normally would die at this point in one hit. It keeps it so that they can survive another hit, and that's huge. You're doubling the amount of attacks you get out of this ability. Now, admittedly, once you get to this level, 10th level, you are getting to the point where your summoning spells aren't as good. Earlier on, you have conjure animals, which is the big thing because the amount it can summon. It doesn't scale the best, and then the access to the summoning spells you get access to later are normally like a one-time summon that has 3 different effects. I think mainly because they realised that conjure animals is an insanely good spell. Not only does it give you a load of stuff, but it's like a load of stuff that isn't insignificant, especially in Druid the Shepherd, because of what you can do with it. So yeah, I was summoning 8 giant owls, and you see it doesn't. You can see that it doesn't scale very well. 5th level, you get 3 times as many. With a 7th level, you get 4 times as many. With a 9th level spell slot, it just doesn't say here, weirdly. Oh, never mind. I was just reading it wrong. But yeah, I mean, you got to think about it. It's 10th level. You have access to 10th level. You get access to 4th level spells. So you at this point you still can't cast it high enough to get 16 giant owls. But you can still constantly have these appear and just be road bumps. Overall, this ability, very useful, although... Sorry, let me rephrase it. It's not very useful. It'll come up occasionally, but a lot of the time, at least at that point, the things you will be summoning will probably die in one hit. Finally, 14th level. Nature spirits you commune with protect you when you are the most defenseless. If you're reduced to 0 or incapacitated against your will, you can immediately gain the benefit of conjure animals as if you cast it at 9th level. It summons 4 beasts of your choice that are challenge rating 2 or lower. The conjure beasts appear within 20 feet of you. They receive no commands from you. They protect you from harm and attack your foes. Lasts 1 hour and it doesn't require concentration or until you dismiss it. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. I love this narratively because it's like you've got such a big bond with animals that they proceed to protect you even when when you are down and out and at your lowest. I think notably, you're at 14th level and you're getting access to 4 2nd level creatures. Now, I'm not going to say they're useless, because that would be mean. I will say that I don't feel like they're going to have a huge effect. I think it's a cool little thing. Maybe they sit there and do... Maybe they sit there and they, they take a couple of hits, allow there to be a bit of a road bump so that your friends can bring you back. I guess you can get this dude. He's not bad. 51 health. Maybe that survives a couple of attacks, actually. Or this Orc. 38 health, not as great. You probably want that instead. But notably, that I wasn't brought up when I was playing it, but we only figured out later. You don't get to choose what's summoned. So the DM can frick you over, although if you're in a situation where you cast conjure animals and they go okay, well you're on land and I'm going to conjure 8 giant fish or 8 sharks. They all die. Your spell's useless. Then they're just being a dick. Overall, big fan of Shepherd. I think it's a very good early game powerhouse. It doesn't scale particularly well, but if you like summoning, you don't care that it doesn't scale particularly well. You're playing it to summon stuff and have a load of bestial companions. I wish it worked better later on, but I think you run into the problem there of inherently Um, Inherently, when it comes to summoning, because of how action economy works, it's just so powerful that they just have to nerf it. Um, or you would just be incredibly overpowered. There'll be two subclasses that they talk about being overpowered then. It would be Moon and Shepherd. Next is Spores. Spores is one of the later ones. It came with, I think, Tasha's. Yeah, Tasha's. This one, I think, it's like Blighted, but I feel like this one's a bit different in the sense that this one is the natural sort of cycle of life, where it's like, seed appears, seed grows into tree, tree dies, tree turns into mulch. Mulch is used as a fertilizer for the next level of plants or trees. Becomes mulch for the next tree. Circle of life, and they're the decay part of it, which isn't liked as much as the others. But at the end of the day, is acknowledged as a part of life, and there is beauty in sacrificing yourself to let the future generations survive or thrive. So first ability it gets access to Chill Touch immediately, which by the way, slight tangent, I'm so happy that the Unearthed Arcana makes it a fucking touch spell, because it's my pet peeve that this isn't a touch spell, but they made it a touch spell and I'm happy. I don't know how powerful it is. I'm really not good at figuring out which spells are powerful. So when looking at the latest Unearthed Arcana where they changed a bunch of cantrips, the only thing I saw was that they completely changed up that ability that nobody everyone thought was useless. The one that gives you advantage on a melee attack. I don't remember what it's called. It's like oh, that's gonna annoy me. That's going to annoy me. Anyway, you get access to Chill Touch, which makes sense narratively. I feel like maybe something like Poison Spray would have made a bit more narrative sense, but it still makes some sense because Chill Touch is like the Chill Touch of death. You get access to some circle spells, sort of the ones you'd expect: Blindness, Deafness, Gentle Repose, Animate Dead, Gaseous Form, Blight, Confusion, Cloud Kill, Contagion. I think the only one that feels weird here is Animate Dead, because it is sort of implied with this first ability that you don't want undead to appear, and then this one says, well, okay, I'm allowed undead. But anyway, that's beside the point. I think all of the abilities are good, all of the spells are good. At second level, you are surrounded by invisible necrotic spores that are harmless until you unleash them on a creature nearby. When a creature you can see moves into a space within 10 feet of you, or starts its turn there, you can use your reaction to deal 1d4 necrotic damage to that creature, unless it succeeds on a con save against your spell save DC. Now you can see here that very quickly this ability, it's very similar to that blighted sort of patch, except the difference here with this one is this ability is a passive, and the other one requires you to have blighted stuff on. But the blighted stuff also does difficult terrain and a bunch of other abilities later. I quite like this ability. The only problem I'd say with it, just a personal thing for me, saving throw abilities that don't at least make them take half damage feel horrendous to me. I love saving throw abilities, but I love saving throw abilities that take a spell slot, because that almost always means that they at least deal half damage. At second level, you gain the ability to channel magic into your spores. As an action, you can expend a use of your wild shape feature to awaken those spores rather than transforming into a beast form. You gain 4 temp hit points for each level you have in this class. While this feature is active, you gain the following benefits. When you deal your hail of spores damage, roll the damage die a second time and add it to your total, so you effectively get 2d4, and then obviously it scales. Your melee weapon attack deals an extra 1d6 necrotic damage to any hit target that you hit. last 10 minutes until and last 10 minutes until you lose all your temp hit points, or until you use your wild shape again. Now, inherently, I think this is a cool ability. I like the fact that it gives you action. It gives you one of those like action wild shape, but it's not wild shape, because wild shape, in this one, a subclass gives you an alternative for wild shape. I like its ability, where it just buffs Hail of Spores. It makes complete sense. You've activated them at this point. The melee attack, giving an extra d6 necrotic, is interesting, because it kind of implies that they want you to be a melee druid. Now, we do have the moon that's a melee druid, so it's not out of the ordinary. The problem here is that last line, where it effectively says that if you lose your temp hit points, you lose this ability. To me, that implies, well, then I don't want to be going into melee. But I'm guessing the logic here is you spend an action, which, by the way, I wish it was a bonus action, because whenever a wild shape feature is an action, it very much feels like you're, to a certain extent, wasting your turn. So, anyway, you use your action, you're not doing anything that turn. Next turn comes around, you go in there, you hit them with your melee attack. You do like a d6 plus a d6 necrotic. End your turn. The dude hits you after taking 2d4 damage from fail. Let's say he failed the con. He hits you, gets rid of all of your temp hit points. Your ability stops, and you're screwed unless you spend another turn doing nothing. Now, it's not necessarily absolutely nothing, because there is spells that exist that take a bonus action, notably Healing Word, that you will get a lot of use out of. I think my biggest problem with this ability is, even though with all these like caveats of, oh, you can use your bonus action to heal, or put a shield of faith on somebody. I don't know if they get that spell, but I think they do. It still feels like you've sort of wasted a turn every time you cast this, because they just break it every time. Now, admittedly, it's 4 each level, so at second level it's 8, so it probably takes more than one attack. And later levels, it's like 100. It's not 100, it's 80. I just wish that this sort of line just didn't exist. I don't think it needs to exist. Overall, though, I like the spells it gets. I like the Hail of Spores ability. I like what this does. I just have like one problem with it, and that's it. At 6th level, you get the ability to infect a corpse and animate it. If the beast or humanoid that is small If a beast or humanoid that is small or medium dies within 10 feet of you, you can use your reaction to animate it, causing it to stand up immediately with 1 hit point. The creature uses the zombie stat block, which means it might just be up there constantly, because zombies are incredibly resistant. In combat, the zombie's turn is after yours. It obeys your mental commands. The only action it can take is the attack action, and you can do this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. This ability is cool, like, to think about and narratively to have, but my worry is there's a load of restrictions here that isn't great. One, it says beast or humanoid, so if you're in a campaign where you're dealing with anything other than that, and there's so many other like creature types that you easily could be dealing with, this ability never works. Second problem, the dude has 1 health. So it might just get killed immediately. And as you saw with the blighted druid, which I'm finding increasingly more is very similar to this druid, you had it where you were summoning saplings like this ability, except the difference with this ability and the other ability is one, the summoning of the saplings didn't require it to be a beast or a humanoid. Two, it summoned a sapling that had definitely more health than the zombie. Three, it incentivized that sapling to then die later on. At 10th level, you gain the ability to seed an area with deadly spores as a bonus action while your symbiotic entity feature is active, which is the wild shape ability. You can hurl spores up to 30 feet away from you. While they swirl in a 10-foot cube for 1 minute, they disappear early if you use the feature again. If you dismiss them with the bonus action, or if you no longer have the symbiotic entity feature, which, by the way, is just you losing some health. When a creature moves into the cube or starts a turn there, they take your Halo of Spores damage, unless they succeed on a con save. You can't take this more than once. Also, you can't use your Hail of Spore ability when you're doing it. So it's you take your Hail of Spore ability while you have the symbiotic entity thing up, and you throw it into an area, into a cube, and so everyone in that takes that. I like this ability. I think I'm realizing with this ability as well that the thing you get with symbiotic entity, which is the extra damage on melee weapons, is a red herring. And in fact, this ability is a backline caster. And again, this is another ability that I feel like has a lot of similarities with the Blighted Druid, because this ability is another one of those. It's an ability that puts a patch on the ground and says, if you own this patch, you're taking damage. And the previous one, that was its main mechanic. And this one, it's sort of like a 10th level side mechanic. I like this ability, and I would like this ability a lot more if the symbiotic entity ability didn't say you lose it as soon as you get rid of as soon as the temp health disappears. At 14th level, the fungal spores in your body alter you. You can't be blinded, deafened, frightened, or poisoned, and any crit against you counts as a normal hit. That's a very cool ability, because normally the ones that say this will just say you can't be poisoned, and I guess you can't be frightened, and that'll be it. And this one's like, no, you can't be blinded because they see for you. You can't be frightened because you don't feel fear anymore, or poisoned because they'll deal with it, or deafened because they'll hear for you. And this, hey, you know that crit that's really scary? It's not scary for me. It's huge. It also mitigates damage a bit. Overall, with the Spore Druid, I like a lot of its abilities. I like all of them except for that symbiotic entity ability. And that's just that one little line of text, and that's it. I do feel like it has a slight problem of an identity crisis. With the Blighted Druid, you knew what you were going to do. It was put the thing down, hope that they go into it, lock them into that place by summoning saplings to take the hits, and also do a little bit of extra damage every time using necrotic stuff. This one feels like it goes, okay, you want to be a backline caster, where you hit them with poisons and you hit them with blights, while standing back and flinging spells. That's what you get when you look at when you look at like some of its abilities. But then some of its abilities are like the Hail of Spore ability, where you, let me just go back to it, where you want to be decently. It's an ability that wants you to be close enough that they walk close to you and take damage, which implies, okay, I need to be closer to them then. Because weirdly, it's a kind of like it's supposed to be something that stops people from trying to do it, like a warning, like a threat. Hey, if you come near me, you'll take a bit of damage. But for you to get use out of these abilities, until you get the Spreading Spore ability, you do need to be close for Hail of Spores and Symbiotic Entity. But then you look at until you lose all your temp hit points line attacks, and then you go, well, then if I want to keep this ability going, I don't want to be getting hit. But I have no way of mitigating my me getting hit. And the only way I know of mitigating getting hit is just to not go into melee. But I want to go into melee, or at least be very close to melee, because my abilities work only really if I'm close to them. And then you look at Fungal Infestation, and to me that feels like another one of those. As I said with the Blighted ability that was similar to this, it's one of those roadblock ones. I put this zombie in the way, you try and kill it, sometimes it doesn't die when you hit it, and it just sits there and stops you from being able to move without taking some damage. But that doesn't make any sense, because that doesn't fit with these abilities that feel like they want you to be closer because they have closer related things. And then you look at Spreading Spores and you're like, okay, well then that's saying that I want to be further back because I throw this at an area and I stay back and shoot them with spells. But that makes no sense with the first abilities. And then you look at Fungal Body and it's like, okay, well it gets rid of crit hits, which maybe means that I want to be more frontline then. But that doesn't make any sense with these abilities. Like, I feel like it's having a bit of an identity crisis where it doesn't know what it's trying to be. Overall, I like it conceptually. I like all of its abilities. I just don't feel like they work into a fully functioning class, subclass. Stars. This is one of the newer ones. I really like the concept of this, because I didn't even think about it until this came out. And I should have, with Circle of the Moon being a thing. The idea of like, well, what's a natural phenomenon? Well, the stars are natural phenomenons. I can't say that word without saying it wrong. Phenomena. And we've had it where the druids deal with earthquakes. A lot of the high level abilities deal with earthquakes or like whirlwinds and stuff. They're natural. We've had the moon, so why not the stars? This is perfect. I love this ability. Love this narratively. Let's have a look. You create a star chart as part of your heavenly studies. The tiny object that can serve as a spellcasting focus for your druid spells. You determine its form by rolling on this chart. You don't need to do that. You can, or just by choosing them. While holding the map, you gain the following benefits. Guidance spell. Guiding bolt is prepared. You can cast Guiding Bolt without expanding a spell slot. You can do this equal to your proficiency bonus. You'll gain all of them back on a long rest. If you lose the map, you can get it back after an hour. This is a cool ability, because not only does it go, hey, your spellcasting focus doesn't have to be like something that would make no sense, like a wand. This one is like, no, it can be your star chart, because narratively it makes sense for you to use your star chart. Gives you access to guidance. Very good spell. Not as good as it is in Baldur's Gate, but still a very good spell. Get access to Guiding Bolt. Guiding Bolt is a very good damaging spell for druids. Also, that added little bit of help is always good. If you hit them, it makes it so the next attack on them gets advantage. The fact that you can cast that a couple of times, very useful. I like this ability. Starry Form. As a bonus action, you can spend a use of your Wild Shape feature to take on a starry form, rather than transforming into a beast. See, this is what I was talking about with this is one of the newer ones. This came in Tasha, and you can see that it's giving you alternatives for turning into a beast, because it really doesn't make any sense for you to turn into a beast. While in your starry form, you retain your game statistics, but you become luminous. Your joints glimmer like stars, glowing lines connect them as on your star chart. The form sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for an additional 10 foot. It lasts 10 minutes, or if you dismiss it or are incapacitated, or use the feature again. You can choose one of these three when you assume the form. You can choose the constellation of the Archer, so like Sagittarius. When you activate this form, as a bonus action on your subsequent turns while it lasts, you can make a ranged spell attack, hurling a luminous arrow that targets one of the creatures within 60 feet you. On a hit, the attack deals radiant damage equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom bonus. Very useful ability. Early on, well, I mean throughout it, but you notice it more early on. It's just like a little bit of extra damage that you can do whenever you cast a spell. I heal somebody, I throw a freaking arrow at this person. I do a damaging spell on this guy, he doesn't die, I throw an arrow at him, maybe he dies. Very useful. Chalice. I don't know an astrological sign that has a chalice in it. Maybe like Aquarius or something. When you cast a spell using a spell slot that restores hit points to a creature, you or another creature within 30 feet of you can regain hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier. Again, just this little extra thing, especially early on, like I said for the other one. An extra d8 plus wisdom modifier, so what, like most of the time an extra d8 plus 2, maybe 3 at this level. Very, very useful. That's like a very early, like, it's more than a healing word. I feel like a healing word's a d6. It's like a cure wounds. It might actually be less than a cure wounds. Don't quote me on that. And then you have dragon, which I'm assuming one of the constellations is a dragon. So I'm assuming there's a dragon one. When you make an intelligence or wisdom check or a constitution saving throw to maintain concentration on a spell, you can treat a roll of a 9 or lower on a d20 as a 10. Very, very useful. Very, very, very useful for when you are concentrating on spells, which, spoiler, druid and cleric almost entirely have a lot of concentration spells. Having access to intelligence or wisdom is very useful as well. It means charm effects a lot of the time don't work on you. A lot of spells, especially psychic related ones, won't work on you because they'll normally be intelligence or wisdom saving throws. Very, very useful. This can mean that you're guaranteed to keep concentration on stuff on average a lot of the time. Because they have to, you got to roll higher than a 10 on concentration. And this says you get a 10. So they have to do more than 20 damage to actually make it so you have to roll. That's huge. Needless to say, I love those abilities. 6th level, when you finish a long rest, you consult your star map for omens. When you do, roll a die. Until you finish your next long rest, you gain access to the special reaction based on whether you rolled even or odd. It's a random one, which is interesting. I normally like those abilities. Let's see how this one goes. Whenever a creature you can see within 30 feet of you is about to make an attack roll, a saving throw, or an ability check, you can use your reaction to roll a d6 and add that number rolled to the total. So it's a 30 feet reaction, give them bless, but you roll it. And I think the roll might be better because I think bless is d4. That's useful. That'll come up a lot. You use useful utility spell for either you or an ally. Or you get odd. Whenever a creature you see within 30 feet of you is about to make an attack roll, saving throw, or ability check, you can use your reaction to roll a d6 and subtract it. So either you can use it to buff you or your friends or hurt the enemies. Well, make it so they don't hit. Very useful ability. It won't seem like it comes up, but if you make somebody miss an attack or you make somebody hit an attack, you will notice. Especially later on, when you stop an enemy from hitting one of your friends, like you stop one of the dragon's claws, you've saved them maybe 20, 30 damage. That's huge. It's effectively like healing them for 30. At 10th level, you get some buffs. The archer and the chalice go from a d8 to a 2d8. And the dragon, while active, gives you a fly speed, and you can hover. Very, very useful. You see, what I like about this is at no point do I feel like there is a bad constellation. They feel very even in what they do. They just have different uses. Also, At the start of each of your turns, while you're in the starry form, you can change what star constellation that's on your body. That's actually huge. So now you can change on the fly. So it's like, I need to heal this person. So for this turn, I'm going to change to Chalice. I'm going to heal this guy, and then I'm going to give a bit extra to that guy. So useful. 14th level, while in the starry form, you become partially incorporeal, giving you resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. That's huge because that doesn't say non-magical. I love the Star Druid. There's a setting that one of my friends is making at the moment for the inevitable for a D&D game that we're doing, and it kind of reminds me of sort of like Eberron, except slightly less magic-y. And we're gonna and there's loads of flying islands, and we're planning on being like explorers that explore this new areas that sort of raise to the surface, because like occasionally new islands raise or fall. And this ability was such a cool idea for like a navigator on a crew, because they all have like specific roles in the crew. They're either taken by one of us or by an NPC. And the idea of like a navigator that's a druid of the stars, and they navigate using like star charts and stuff. Such a cool idea. And then you add on the fact that this druid's abilities, none of them feel bad. They scale well. They make sure that you have uses in combat. Even when they upgrade, none of them seems more powerful than the others. It isn't a huge amount of damage. I'm not going to go out and say that this is the most powerful class, but it does have like a lot of cool abilities, and it's not incredibly weak. That's what I'll say about it. Finally, and honestly, I might leave after this so that I can. I'll be honest. I'm doing a short doing a short session because Bake Off was moved to today, and so I want to watch Bake Off. I know it's on right now, but we're recording it now, and I want to actually watch it before tomorrow. We've got the Wildfire Druid. Love this idea. It's the idea that there isn't brought up much, which is that technically, if a forest grows too much, you do need to cull it a bit. And this one also implies it fits very well with the decay people, where this one the trees will become ash, and the ash will become great fertilizer for new stuff to appear. So it's a primal sort of destruction part of druids that isn't really brought up much. So when you do this, you get access to these spells. So as you can probably expect, they're all either healing spells, which you can sort of see like the Phoenix sort of way. I'd kind of like to flavour them as like it's healing fire, and then damaging spells, fire-based damaging spells. Second level, you can summon the primal spirit bound to your soul. As an action, you expend one of your wild shape features to summon your wildfire spirit rather than assuming a beast form. Again, as I said before, this is a Tasha ability. This is one of the newer subclasses. So it's a Tasha subclass. It's one of the newer subclasses, and it has this alternate to wild shape. Frankly, this feature, to a certain extent, I would love to see on the Shepherd if they remake the Shepherd, because I really like the idea of, as an action, I can summon a couple of summons as the most summon related subclass. It appears in an unoccupied space of your choice within 30 feet. Each creature within 10 feet of the spirit when it appears must succeed in a dex saving throw against the spell save DC or take 2d6. So it appears, does like a kind of explosion, and does 2d6 to people, It's kind of like a weakened Burning Hands. Spirit's friendly to you and your companions and obeys your commands. Uh, TLDR, it's pretty powerful. I won't go through the stat block completely. I will just show it. It's I'll be pretty quick with this because it's nothing too out of the ordinary. It's very similar to how you would do summon stuff in general. Notably, it's got a decent more health than you'd expect. 5 plus 5 times your druid level. That's pretty good. In fact, it's got fly speed, pretty useful. Obviously, it's immune to fire. I'm glad it's immune to all these conditions. That's very useful as well. It's got a teleportation that does that. There's a weakened, arguably weakened. Early on, it'll be weakened version of when it appears, but it's a teleport as well. That's very very cool. And then it has just a basic attack D6 plus proficiency bonus. All the time, if there's more than one enemy, well, all the time, if there's more than one enemy that you can get in this, and it doesn't get allies, you want to be using the teleport. It's cool. It's not weak for a summon that you get. I think my thing froze there a bit. I don't know why. Let me... I wonder if maybe the site's gone down or something. It's entirely possible. Oh, why did I have to go down just when I'm about to, just when I'm near the end? Right, we'll use my... Oh no, it's working. We'll give that some time to rest and we'll use the backup one. See, I thought I had a backup one ready. Never mind, it's working now. See, the reason I don't use that as my first one is I found a couple of times that it actually just gives false information or misses out a bit that's actually quite useful. Anyway, as I was saying, disability, it's very good. The idea that you have another ability that ability that you can use from your wild shape instead of your wild shape that makes more narrative sense is great. Because you're about wildfire. Why would you turn into an animal? 6th level, the bond with your wild spirit enhances your destruction and restoration magic. Whenever you cast a spell that deals fire damage or restores health, while your wild spirit is summoned, roll a d8, and you gain a bonus equal to the number rolled to the damage or the healing. When you cast a spell with a range other than self, the spell can originate from you or your wild shape. Your wildfire spirit. Very useful. It allows your wild spirit to have some utility in the fact that you can cast spells from it. And it allows you to have that little extra buff for damaging and healing. It's very good. It allows you to keep up with people, more than keep up actually, because a lot of druids don't get these kinds of abilities. Especially, and it makes sense because you're very, very destructive. I kind of also see it as also like sudden healing as well, which I think that's sort of what they're going for here. I like this a lot. I could see myself playing one of these, and sort of having this idea that I've learned from a phoenix, because what phoenixes are like my favorite, one of my favorite mythological like beings. And so the idea that I'm like I learned from a phoenix, an intelligent phoenix about like fire and its usefulness, I think would be really cool. Cauterizing flames. You gain the ability to turn death into magical flames that can heal or incinerate. When a small or larger creature dies within 30 feet of you, or your wildfire spirit, a harmless spectral flame springs forth in the dead creature's space and flickers there for 1 minute. When a creature you can see enters that space, you can use your reaction to extinguish that fire there and either heal or damage or deal fire damage to it. The healing or damage is equal to 2d10 plus wisdom. can use this reaction a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you get it back on a long rest. I like this because not only does it sort of like really fit into the idea of like the destruction of somebody helps something else grow. It also fits into the just pure destruction part of the character. Blazing Revival. The bonds within your wildfire spirit can save you from death. See, it very much goes for the whole Phoenix idea, and I think it lends itself very well to it. If the spirit is within 120 feet of you when you are reduced to 0, and thereby fall unconscious, you can cause the spirit to drop to 0 hit points. You then regain half your hit points and immediately rise to your feet. Once you use this feature, you can't. That's huge. That's a hugely powerful ability that can change a fight. I love that ability. I love what it narratively means. Overall, I love Wildfire. It fits into this category of, I think the direction they need to go, and I've been harping on this the whole stream, and even near the end I will be harping. Even near the end, like we are now, I will harp on about this. The ability, having abilities that say, instead of using your wild shape ability, you get this ability, is so good because it adds that little bit of narrative. To a certain extent, it reminds me of the rage mechanic, but the difference is it fundamentally changes how the wild shape works. Whereas the rage just adds this little extra effect to it. So, in general, looking through all of the classes, I'll just do a quick TLDR before I sign off. I know this one hasn't been particularly long, but at least we got through one of them. Blighted is really, really good. Dreams is pretty good. I think it suffers a tiny bit from it being one of the older ones. Land is very disappointing. Every ability after its second level ability isn't great. Moon is as good as it's always been, which has been great. Shepherd is really, really fun. Only problem is it doesn't do very well later levels. Spores feels a bit confused in what it's doing, and it kind of feels like Blighted does all the things that Spores does, but better, because it has a bit more of a cohesive like image for itself. And while Stars is very, very good, honestly no notes, it's just very, very fun. And Wildfire is in a very similar situation where both narratively and mechanically it's very, very good. I think the only difference between Stars and Wildfire is I think Stars doesn't do it as well like with the narrative abilities, while Wildfire doesn't do as well in the mechanical abilities and how cool they are. But it's only like tiny differences. So yeah, this is me signing off. I know it's only been an hour and 40 minutes, but we got through a class. I promise that next stream I do, we'll try and make it through 2. We'll do 2, maybe 2.5 hours, maybe even 3 if I'm feeling up for it. Okay, this is JD Moss signing out.